Alright, so hopefully you've already downloaded Pepakura Designer. When you do and you open a file in it, this is what you're going to see. On the right hand side you've got your 2D plan view showing the layout of all the different parts on the paper as it will print out. And on the left hand side is the 3D view showing how all those parts fit together, which you can spin around and just check everything out on it. Now, when you're printing out these plans for foam, there's a few things that you probably need to be aware of. The first thing is that because of the thickness of the foam that you're using, some of the parts won't be required. Here circled on the image you can see a couple of tabs which, because the 10mm foam is so thick, you just don't need these pieces. So what I'd advise that you do is you print out the pieces, and then when you're cutting it out you just cut these tabs off. They're simply not required. Here on this image you can see that there are a few other places where these kind of tabs exist that you just don't need. Now there are some other similar looking pieces to tabs which exist on some of these parts, and you're just going to have to make a judgment call really as to whether you think you need them or you don't. In the video that follows this commentary I'll show you the process for cutting out these pieces, and then also for transferring them onto foam and then cutting out those pieces from foam. To do that I'll just be using one piece as an example, and it's going to be this piece here, which is the bridge part of the shoe. It's a small simple part, so hopefully it won't take long to show you. So this is my workbench, and let me just show you a few of the tools that I use for foam building. It depends what kind of foam I'm using as to what tools I use. If I'm using the 7mm foam here, which is EVA foam, it's camping mats. If I'm using that, I'll typically cut it with just a pair of scissors. It cuts very cleanly. You get an excellent edge on it. The only problem with cutting with scissors is, as you can see here on this bit, is as each snip goes along you get a little bump or an imperfection in the edge of something, and that's fine as long as you're joining an edge to an edge, you won't see it. But if you're butt joining something, then you'll probably end up noticing that, so it's not ideal but it works well. Now for the next project that I'm doing, I'm using this thicker 10mm EVA foam, and you can actually you can see the difference there in the thickness. It's also a lot stiffer as a result, and cutting it with scissors would probably work, but instead I went out and bought one of these, which is a extendable craft knife with, I don't know, 10 replacement blades. It was only a few dollars. This works really well. There's no way I'll go back to using scissors again after using this. And I also got a sharpening stone, so I can just refresh the blade after each cutting session. I use this as a nice edge if I want to cut really straight lines. I just pop the blade out nice and long, get it flat along this blade here, and cut along that edge, and it means that I get perfect straight edges every time. For shaping the foam, heat gun. I didn't shape any foam at all when I was making my Iron Man suit. I attempted it with the 7mm foam, but it didn't really seem to hold the shape, so I just abandoned that idea. Now with the 10mm foam, it works a treat, so I'll definitely be using one of those. With Iron Man, I joined all the pieces with a trusty glue gun. I actually went through 2 glue guns. This is now my 3rd one. That's probably a good lesson in why you should buy good glue guns, not cheap ones, but there you go. For the new project, I'll be using something different, and I'll show you that a little bit later on with some technique as well, just to show you how to best join the edges. I'll also be using this little thing. It's a mouse sander.
with the 10mm foam, because it's so much thicker and harder, you can actually sand it once it's finished, which means you get an excellent finished article. So, now you've got your paper patterns printed out, it's time to cut out the templates. For large pieces, like this project that I'm embarking on, what you'll notice is that the pattern goes across several sheets of paper. In fact, in the case of this piece, which is the cod, it is on 20 separate sheets of paper, and there's only actually 3 or 4 pieces to it. So what that means is that you have to cut them out and then join them back together again, which is really tedious. There isn't a way around this unless you've got a sheet, unless you've got a printer that can print out A0 paper. Now you'll see here some of the little tabs that I referred to in the video about Pepakura Designer. As I mentioned, it's up to you whether you want to keep some of these or delete them. It really depends on the kind of foam that you're using and what the finished product is going to look like, and just how comfortable you are with cutting into all these little diamonds and edges. Personally, where I don't need them or where I don't think that I'm going to need them, I will just cut them out. They're not that hard to add thickening parts to later. So I won't insult your intelligence by showing you how this part works, but obviously in Pepakura Designer the pattern is seamless, but because your printer won't print all the way to the edges, when you are joining it, you just need to make sure to get rid of these edges. Otherwise the pattern will end up slightly too large. I prefer to join the patterns by running a glue stick along the edge and then sticking them together. You can use sellotape as well to reinforce it. Half the time you're going to end up cutting this back up again into smaller pieces just to fit it onto your foam squares or your pieces of foam. But as I say, it is a little bit tedious, but you do get used to it.